The funeral director stopped me at the door. "Before you leave," he said quietly, "your brother asked us not to give you your father's personal effects." For a second, I thought I had misunderstood him. If you've ever discovered that grief wasn't the worst thing waiting for you, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. My father had been dead less than 24 hours. My younger brother, Ryan, hadn't spoken to me during the service except to shake my hand like we were co-workers instead of family. We stood 6 feet apart while relatives hugged each other. Every time I tried to approach him, someone else stepped between us. Now I finally understood why. "What personal effects?" I asked. The funeral director looked uncomfortable. "His wallet, watch, wedding ring, cell phone. Those belong to the estate." "I understand, sir." "Then why aren't you giving them to me?" He specifically instructed us not to. My father had always told us that neither of us was in charge of the family. "We're equals," he used to say. That sentence echoed in my head as I walked back to my truck. Ryan had no authority to make that decision, unless he believed he already had it. I drove straight to Dad's house in Lexington, Kentucky. The porch light was on. Ryan's SUV was in the driveway. So was a rental dumpster. My stomach tightened. When I stepped inside without knocking, the living room was half empty. Dad's recliner was gone. The old bookshelf he'd built with his own hands was gone. Even the framed photographs from the hallway had disappeared. Ryan came down the stairs carrying another cardboard box. He froze when he saw me. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Cleaning." "For who?" "For the estate. The estate opened yesterday?" "It doesn't have to." He walked past me toward the front door. I noticed labels on several boxes. Keep, sell, donate. Everything was already categorized. "You planned this." "I planned to help." "By emptying the house before anyone inventoried it?" Ryan set the box down. "You weren't here. I got here the day after Dad died. You weren't here the last 8 months." There it was. The sentence he'd been saving. He had lived 20 minutes away. I lived in Nashville, nearly 4 hours from Dad. I drove up every other weekend, sometimes every week when Dad's health got worse. Ryan handled the day-to-day appointments. I never denied that. I thanked him more times than I could count. But this wasn't caregiving. This was something else. "Where's Dad's phone?" I asked. Ryan didn't answer. "The funeral home said you took it." "I did. I want it." "No." "No? It contains private information. It also belongs to Dad's estate." Ryan folded his arms. "I'll decide what needs to be shared." That sentence hit harder than anything else he'd said. "Not we." I walked toward Dad's office. Ryan stepped in front of me. "You don't need to go in there." "Move." "I've already organized everything." "Move." For a moment I thought he would refuse. Then he stepped aside. The office looked wrong. Dad loved paperwork. His desk was usually buried under insurance statements, handwritten reminders, and envelopes he insisted he'd answer tomorrow. Now the surface was spotless. Too spotless. Every drawer was empty. The filing cabinet stood open with nothing inside. Only one thing remained: a coffee mug. Dad never left that mug on his desk. He always kept it on the windowsill because he said rings on the wood drove him crazy. I picked it up. Something rattled inside. Ryan's voice sharpened behind me. "Put that down." I turned the mug upside down. A small brass key slid into my hand. Attached to it was a faded masking tape label. In my father's handwriting were 4 words: "Bank box, only Daniel." Ryan didn't try to take the key from me. That surprised me more than the argument. Instead, he stared at the masking tape as though he had seen it before. "Give it to me," he said. "My name is on it." "It doesn't matter." "It mattered enough for Dad to write it." His jaw tightened. You don't know what it's for. Neither do you. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then he turned away, grabbed another box, and carried it outside without another word. I slipped the key into my jacket pocket. That single decision changed everything. I left the house before we said anything else to each other. On the drive back to my hotel, I kept replaying the scene in my head. Ryan hadn't looked surprised by the key. He had looked frustrated, as if he had searched for it and failed. The next morning, I called the local bank where Dad had kept his checking account for almost 40 years. The receptionist confirmed they also offered safe deposit boxes, but refused to discuss customer information over the phone. Fair enough. An hour later, I walked into the branch carrying Dad's death certificate and my driver's license. The branch manager introduced herself as Linda. She reviewed the paperwork carefully. Did your father name you as a joint renter on a safe deposit box? I don't know. I'll check. She disappeared into a back office. When she returned, her expression had changed. There is a safe deposit box. I felt my pulse quicken. Can I access it? Not today. Why not? There was an access attempt yesterday. My stomach tightened. By who? I can't disclose another customer's information. Was it my brother? I can't answer that. Did they get in? No. Why? The person didn't have the required authorization. I let out a slow breath. So nobody has opened it. Correct. She lowered her voice. If you're listed as a co-renter, we'll need to verify documentation. If you're the designated survivor, we can schedule access after completing probate requirements. She handed me a form. Return tomorrow morning. I thanked her and walked outside. Ryan had come here, the day before I even found the key. He had known the box existed. He just couldn't open it. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was my Aunt Carol, Dad's older sister. I heard you boys argued. Who told you? Ryan. I smiled without humor. I'm guessing his version was interesting. He said you're accusing him of stealing. I'm asking questions. Daniel. She hesitated. Your father trusted Ryan. I know. He depended on him. I know. Maybe you should let him finish handling things. I looked across the hotel parking lot. Did Ryan mention the dumpster? Silence. The furniture being removed? No. The filing cabinets? No. The safe deposit box he tried to access yesterday? Another silence. I didn't know about that. I don't think you were supposed to. She sighed. You boys need to talk. We tried. No, you argued. Those weren't the same thing. That evening, I drove back to Dad's house. The dumpster was nearly full. Old curtains, broken shelves, boxes of magazines. Mixed among them, I noticed several black trash bags. One had torn open. Inside were shredded papers, not ordinary household trash, documents. I climbed into the dumpster. Someone had run them through a paper shredder, but the bag had split before reaching the bottom. Several strips lay loose near the edge. I picked up one. My father's handwriting, another, part of a bank statement, another. Beneficiary designation. A flashlight beam hit my face. What the hell are you doing? Ryan stood beside the dumpster. You threw away documents. I threw away junk. This isn't junk. It is now. I climbed back down. Why are there shredded bank records? They're old. So recycle them. I already did. No, you destroyed them. His face reddened. I've spent 8 months cleaning up after Dad while you visited on weekends. I know exactly how much you did. No, you don't. You took care of him. I did everything. I've thanked you for that. You thanked me. He laughed bitterly. You have no idea what those nights were like. For the first time since Dad died, I saw something besides anger, exhaustion, real exhaustion, dark circles under his eyes. hands that trembled slightly. He had been carrying more than I realized, but none of that explained the shredded paperwork. "I appreciate everything you did for Dad," I said quietly. "Then trust me." "I can't." "Why?" "Because honest people don't empty a house before probate." His expression hardened again. "I knew you'd think that." "I don't think it." I held up the paper strips. "I see it." He walked past me toward the garage. Just before disappearing inside, he stopped. "Dad changed his mind about a lot of things before he died." "What does that mean?" "You'll find out." The garage door slammed. The next morning, I returned to the bank. Linda met me personally. After checking several signatures and identification records, she looked up. "Mr. Walker?" "Yes?" "You were added as a joint renter 6 weeks ago." I frowned. 6 weeks? "Yes." My father signed the updated authorization in person. Ryan had visited Dad almost every day. He never mentioned it. Linda unlocked a steel door leading to the vault. A few minutes later, she placed a small metal box on the table. "Take all the time you need." When she left, I inserted the brass key. The lid opened. There wasn't any cash, no jewelry, no will, only a large manila envelope. Across the front, in my father's handwriting, were the words, "Daniel, if Ryan tells you there isn't another will, don't believe him." My hands were shaking before I even opened the envelope. Dad wasn't dramatic. He didn't leave mysterious notes or play games. If he had written something this direct, he expected me to need it. Inside were 3 items: a folded letter, a flash drive, a photocopy of a legal document. I unfolded the letter first. "Daniel, if you're reading this, I either waited too long or trusted the wrong person. Ryan has helped me more than I can ever repay. He has carried burdens I never wanted either of you to carry. If he tells you that I loved him more, don't believe that. If he tells you I trusted only him, don't believe that either. Over the last few months, I discovered money missing from my accounts that I could not explain. At first, I thought I had forgotten writing the checks. Later, I realized someone was moving money electronically. I confronted Ryan. He admitted taking some of it. He promised to replace every dollar. I wanted to believe him. I almost did. I stopped reading. Ryan, taking money from Dad? That didn't fit the brother I knew. Ryan had always been responsible. He paid bills on time. He fixed everyone's cars. He loaned money instead of borrowing it. For several minutes, I simply stared at the paper. Then I forced myself to continue. After our conversation, I contacted a new attorney. I changed my estate plan. The previous will no longer reflect my wishes. If Ryan says I destroyed the new documents, he is lying. If the originals disappear, my attorney has certified copies and knows why I changed everything. Don't punish your brother because you're angry. Only hold him responsible for what he actually chose to do. The letter ended with Dad's signature. Nothing emotional, nothing theatrical, just his name. Exactly the way he signed birthday cards. I looked at the photocopied legal document. It was the first page of a will executed just 4 months earlier. Different attorney, different witnesses. Across the bottom was a certification stamp. True copy of original executed document. The originals had existed. Dad hadn't imagined them. Ryan had lied, or at least hidden them. I picked up the flash drive. The bank manager had allowed me to bring my laptop into the private room. Inside were scanned PDFs, bank statements, property records, insurance policies. Then I saw a folder named Raid Last. I ignored it. Instead, I opened the bank statements. Dad had highlighted dozens of electronic transfers. Every highlighted transaction went to the same account. The account holder's name wasn't visible, only the last 4 digits. 4827. The amount totaled just over $187,000, far more than I expected. Besides several transfers, Dad had typed notes. Ryan says temporary, business debt. Will repay after refinancing? The last note was different. Denied authorizing this transfer. My phone buzzed. Ryan, I let it ring. It stopped. Then another call. Then another. Finally, a text arrived. Where are you? I didn't answer. 30 seconds later. Did you go to the bank? Another message. Daniel, answer me. I closed the laptop. Dad had told only one person about the safe deposit box. Me. Ryan shouldn't have known I was there. Unless... I looked around the small private room. Nothing unusual. Then I remembered. The bank manager had called my name in the lobby. Ryan couldn't have heard that. Unless someone inside the bank told him. No. More likely. He had been waiting outside. Watching. I slowly stood and looked through the narrow window facing the parking lot. Ryan's dark blue SUV sat across the street. Engine running. He wasn't leaving. He was waiting for me. I thanked Linda, placed everything back inside the envelope and walked toward the rear exit instead of the front lobby. There isn't another exit for customers, Linda said. There is today. She looked through the front windows and noticed the SUV. Is there a problem? I don't know yet. She studied Ryan's vehicle for several seconds. Then she picked up a phone. My assistant will walk you through the employee entrance. 5 minutes later, I stepped into the alley behind the bank. Ryan never saw me leave. I drove straight to the office listed on Dad's will. Walker and Benson Estate Law. The receptionist asked my name. When I told her, she looked at the computer, then disappeared into a hallway. Less than a minute later, an older attorney opened the door himself. You must be Daniel. I am. I've been expecting you. My heart skipped. Expecting me? Your father told me that if anything happened to him before we finalized the trust, you would eventually find his letter. I frowned. Finalized? Mr. Benson nodded. The will wasn't the last document your father signed. He closed the office door behind us. There was also a family trust. I felt the room grow strangely quiet. Ryan had never mentioned a trust. Not once. Mr. Benson placed a thick blue folder on the conference table. I believe your brother has been trying very hard to make sure you never saw this. He opened the folder. On the very first page was a notarized amendment dated just 18 days before Dad died. At the bottom was a single handwritten sentence in my father's unmistakable handwriting. If Ryan has already emptied my house, ask him where he hid the black notebook. I didn't touch the blue folder. I kept staring at my father's handwriting beneath the trust amendment. If Ryan has already emptied my house, ask him where he hid the black notebook. Mr. Benson watched me quietly. I take it you weren't expecting that. No. Did your brother empty the house? Half of it. He slowly nodded. I was afraid of that. He turned another page. This is why your father came to me. Inside the folder was a timeline, not legal notes, Dad's notes. Every page was dated, every conversation with Ryan, every transfer, every promise to repay, every concern. It wasn't emotional. It read like the maintenance log Dad kept for his pickup truck. January 12th, Ryan borrowed $8,000. Said contractor still owes him. February 3rd, paid insurance for Ryan again, told him this cannot continue. March 18th, Ryan promised no more borrowing. Then the entries changed. April 2nd, found online transfer I do not remember approving. Ryan says I forgot. April 15th, changed banking password. April 22nd, password changed again. Bank says login came from my home computer. I did not use it. I looked up. Dad couldn't even remember his email password. That's exactly what concerned him, Mr. Benson replied. He didn't use online banking. I know. He paid almost everything by check. I know. The attorney folded his hands. Your father believed someone else was accessing his computer. My first instinct was obvious. Ryan. Then something stopped me. Did Dad actually accuse him? Mr. Benson reached for another page. No. He handed it to me. It was a note from Dad. I don't know if Ryan is lying to me or covering for someone else. That sentence changed everything. Until now, I had assumed Ryan was the mastermind. Now I wasn't sure. Mr. Benson opened another section of the file. There's something else. He slid over a property appraisal. The address wasn't Dad's house. It belonged to a lake cabin nearly 90 minutes away. I recognized it immediately. My grandfather had built it decades earlier. The family sold it after Grandpa died, or so I thought. Dad owned this? He bought it back 3 years ago. I stared at him. Why didn't anyone know? He asked us to keep the purchase confidential. Even from Ryan? Especially from Ryan. My confusion grew. If he didn't trust Ryan, he still loved him. Mr. Benson spoke carefully. Your father kept hoping your brother would solve his financial problems before he needed to tell you. Financial problems? He never explained everything. He opened the trust documents. The cabin wasn't listed as part of the general estate. Instead, it had been transferred into the trust. The beneficiary wasn't Ryan. It wasn't me either. It was both of us. Neither brother could sell it without the written consent of the other. Dad had practically guaranteed we would have to work together. I almost laughed. Even after everything, he still believed we could. Then Mr. Benson pointed toward a paragraph near the end. There. I read it twice, then a third time. If either beneficiary intentionally concealed estate assets or destroyed estate records, that person's share of the residual estate would be reduced by the value of the missing assets. Dad had anticipated exactly this situation. He knew. He feared it, Mr. Benson corrected. There's a difference. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. Ryan. This time there was a voicemail. I played it on speaker. Daniel. His voice sounded exhausted, not angry. Please stop talking to lawyers until you hear me out. I remained silent. You think I'm hiding Dad's will? A long pause followed. I didn't hide it. Another pause. I hid something else. The message ended there. Nothing more. Mr. Benson looked at me. Interesting. He admitted hiding something. Yes. But not the will. Exactly. It wasn't a denial. It also wasn't a confession. As I left the attorney's office, I noticed a pickup truck parked across the street. Ryan leaned against the driver's door. He wasn't trying to block me. He wasn't yelling. He simply waited. When I walked over, neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, he looked at me. You found the key. I did. You opened the box. Yes. He nodded slowly. Dad planned this. I think he did. Ryan rubbed both hands across his face. You've probably decided I'm a thief. I've decided I don't know the truth. His shoulders dropped slightly. That's more than I expected. I watched him carefully. What's the black notebook? His eyes widened, for the first time since Dad died. Ryan looked genuinely frightened, not guilty, frightened. Who told you about that? Dad. Ryan closed his eyes. Then he whispered something I almost didn't hear. Oh, no. What? He remembered. What are you talking about? Ryan looked straight at me. I never hid the notebook. He swallowed. I burned it. My pulse quickened. You what? I burned it 6 months ago. Why? His voice cracked. Because Dad told me to. Silence settled between us. Then he reached into his truck and handed me a folded photograph. It showed my father standing beside a fireplace at the lake cabin. In his hands was a black leather notebook, and flames were already climbing its edges. I stared at the photograph. The flames had already reached the bottom corner of the notebook. Dad wasn't trying to save it. He was feeding it into the fire himself. I looked back at Ryan. You expect me to believe Dad wanted his own records destroyed? I didn't expect you to believe anything. Then explain. Ryan leaned against the truck. For months, he kept writing everything down. Every loan, every argument, every mistake I made. I know. No, you don't. He shook his head. You've only seen the beginning. What happened? He became obsessed. The word sounded wrong coming from Ryan. Dad wasn't obsessed. He was after he realized money was disappearing. I waited. He stopped trusting anyone. Because money was disappearing. Yes. He had a reason. Ryan looked away. I know. That answer caught me off guard. You admit it? I already admitted I took money. You admitted some. I did. How much? His voice was barely above a whisper. About 80,000. The number hit me hard. But Dad's records show more than twice that. I know. Then where did the rest go? Ryan looked straight at me. I've been trying to figure that out myself. For several seconds, I simply stared at him. You expect me to believe someone else emptied Dad's accounts? No. Then who? I don't know. I almost laughed. You don't know? I know I didn't move another $100,000. Your login was used. I know. You had power of attorney. I know. You lived with him. I know. Every answer was the same. Not defensive, not angry, just tired. I finally asked the question that had been sitting in the back of my mind since reading Dad's letter. Why didn't you tell me any of this? Ryan gave a sad smile. Because Dad made me promise? Promise what? That I wouldn't drag you into it unless he died before we figured it out. My phone vibrated. It was Mr. Benson. Daniel, he said without greeting. Where are you? Outside your office. Stay there. Why? The probate clerk just called. My stomach tightened. What happened? Someone filed a petition this morning. Ryan looked at me. I switched the phone to speaker. A petition for what? Mr. Benson answered immediately. To probate a different will. Ryan's head snapped toward the phone. What? There are now 3 wills, the attorney continued. 3? I repeated. Yes. Who filed it? A brief pause. Then, a woman named Karen Mitchell. Neither Ryan nor I spoke. Finally, I asked, Who is Karen Mitchell? Mr. Benson's voice became unusually careful. According to the filing... Another pause. She claims she was your father's wife. Everything around me seemed to stop. Ryan frowned. That's impossible. Our mother died 12 years ago. I know, Mr. Benson continued. The marriage certificate attached to the petition is dated 18 months ago. I looked at Ryan. His face had gone completely pale. You knew her? He slowly nodded. Dad hired her. For what? She was his in-home caregiver. I felt the ground shift beneath me. She worked for him? Yes. Did she ever live in the house? No. Were they involved? I never thought so. You never mentioned her. Ryan laughed bitterly. Neither did Dad. Mr. Benson interrupted. There's another problem. I braced myself. The will she submitted leaves virtually everything to Karen Mitchell. Silence. The house. Silence. The investment accounts. Silence. The lake cabin, even the cabin. I finally managed to speak. When was it signed? 23 days before your father died. I closed my eyes. That was 5 days before Dad signed the trust amendment. The dates couldn't both represent his final wishes. Unless one of the documents wasn't genuine. Ryan spoke before I could. That's a forgery, Mr. Benson answered carefully. I hope you're right. Hope? The signatures appear remarkably consistent. Ryan took a step toward my phone. Who witnessed it? Mr. Benson exhaled. That's the part that concerns me. Why? One witness is Karen Mitchell. And the other? The notary. No. The notary is real. I mean the second witness. Another pause. Then Mr. Benson quietly said the name. Eric Lawson. Ryan looked as confused as I felt. I don't know anyone named Eric Lawson. Neither did I. But the name sounded strangely familiar. Then I remembered. Dad's old mechanic. The man who had serviced his truck for nearly 20 years. Someone Dad trusted completely. If Eric Lawson had actually witnessed the signing, then this wasn't just a random fraud. Someone had convinced one of Dad's oldest friends that everything was legitimate. Or someone had stolen his identity too. Either possibility made the situation far worse than either Ryan or I had imagined. As we stood in silence outside the attorney's office, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call. It was a text from an unknown number. Only one sentence. Stop looking for Karen, unless you want to know what really happened the night your father died. I read the message 3 times. Stop looking for Karen, unless you want to know what really happened the night your father died. There was no signature, no phone number I recognized, only a prepaid number with no caller ID. Ryan read it over my shoulder. Who sent that? I don't know. He looked genuinely unsettled. We need to tell Benson. We walked back inside together. It was the first time since Dad's funeral that we had entered the same room without arguing. Mr. Benson read the text, then immediately photographed it. Don't reply. I wasn't planning to. I'll ask the court to preserve all phone records connected with the estate. Ryan remained unusually quiet. When the attorney finished, he looked directly at him. Ryan, I need you to answer one question honestly. Ryan nodded. Did your father die alone? The room fell silent. No. Who was with him? I was. Anyone else? Ryan hesitated. Then he slowly nodded. Karen. My stomach tightened. You told me she never stayed at the house. She didn't. Then why was she there? Dad called her. When? The afternoon he died. Neither Mr. Benson nor I interrupted him. He'd been short of breath all morning. I wanted to call 911. What did Dad say? He refused. Ryan looked down at his hands. He said he was tired. I remembered those words. Dad had said something similar a week earlier. Not that he wanted to die, only that he was tired of hospitals. Ryan continued. He asked me to call Karen because she understood his medications better than I did. What happened after she arrived? We stayed with him. For how long? About 2 hours. And then? I left. You left? Ryan nodded. Dad told me to pick up prescriptions before the pharmacy closed. You left a dying man? I didn't know he was dying. His voice cracked. When I came back, he couldn't finish. No one spoke. Finally, Mr. Benson asked quietly, who pronounced him dead? The hospice nurse. And Karen? Ryan frowned. She was gone. Gone? Her car was gone. Did she tell you she was leaving? No. Did she ever explain why? No. Mr. Benson leaned back slowly. When did you first hear she claimed to be your father's wife? Ryan looked genuinely confused. Just now. I believed him. For the first time since all of this began, I actually believed him. Not because he looked convincing, because if he had been part of Karen's plan, he wouldn't have looked this shocked. Mr. Benson opened a legal pad. We need facts. He wrote 4 names. Daniel Ryan, Karen Mitchell, Eric Lawson, then he drew lines between them. Something doesn't fit. He tapped Karen's name. If she legally married your father 18 months ago, he looked at me. Why didn't she claim any authority while he was alive? Neither of us had an answer. Why let Ryan manage appointments? Why let him handle medications? Why never introduce herself as his wife? Every question made the alleged marriage seem less believable. Then Mr. Benson's assistant knocked on the door. I'm sorry to interrupt. She handed him a thin file. The clerk just emailed the exhibits. Mr. Benson opened it. The first page was the marriage certificate. The second, a wedding photograph. I leaned forward. My father wore a dark suit. Karen stood beside him holding flowers. The county clerk's seal appeared at the bottom. At first glance, it looked completely genuine. Then something caught my eye. Dad wasn't wearing his wedding ring. He had worn that ring every single day after Mom died. Not because he was still married. Because he said taking it off felt like leaving her behind. Even during surgeries, he carried it in his wallet. I pointed at the photograph. He would never take it off. Ryan looked closer. His expression changed immediately. You're right. Mr. Benson examined the image. You think it's fake? No. I kept staring. I think something is missing. Then I remembered the funeral director. Ryan had insisted on collecting Dad's personal belongings. His wallet, his watch, his phone, his wedding ring. I slowly turned toward my brother. Where is Dad's ring? Ryan blinked. His voice faded. I don't know. You collected it. I know. What did you do with it? I put everything in a small leather bag. Where is it now? Ryan's face went completely white. I left it. He stopped. Where? At the house. We drove there immediately. The leather bag wasn't in Dad's bedroom. It wasn't in the office. It wasn't in the closet where Ryan said he had placed it. Someone had taken it. Inside that bag had been Dad's ring, his wallet, and the phone that might contain the final calls and messages from the day he died. Ryan stood frozen in the empty bedroom. I swear. He looked at me. I never moved it. I believed he thought he was telling the truth. Then I noticed something on the hardwood floor beneath the bed, a tiny square of glossy paper. I picked it up. It wasn't paper. It was the torn corner of a photograph. Only one detail remained visible. Part of a woman's hand. And on her finger was my mother's diamond engagement ring. Not Karen's. My mother's. The same ring Dad had promised would never leave the family. Someone hadn't just stolen evidence. They had stolen the one piece of jewelry Dad valued more than anything else. And whoever had it had been inside this house after Ryan left. I slipped the torn corner of the photograph into an evidence envelope Mr. Benson had given me earlier that day. Ryan stood motionless in Dad's bedroom. I checked this room 3 times. I believe you. He looked at me, surprised. You do? I believe you thought the leather bag was still here. That wasn't the same as trusting him completely. It was simply the truth, as I understood it. Within an hour, the temporary probate administrator changed the locks on Dad's house. Neither Ryan nor I would have unrestricted access again until the estate was settled. It was the right decision. The next morning, Mr. Benson contacted the county investigator handling probate fraud. The investigator wasn't interested in family arguments. He was interested in documents, phone records, financial transfers, signatures, security footage, exactly what we needed. 2 days later, the bank produced surveillance video from the afternoon Ryan had unsuccessfully tried to access Dad's safe deposit box. Ryan had told the truth. He arrived alone. He left alone. He never entered the vault. That removed one suspicion. Another arrived almost immediately. The funeral home reviewed its security recordings after Mr. Benson requested preservation. The leather bag containing Dad's watch, wallet, phone, and wedding ring had been released exactly as Ryan claimed. He carried it to his SUV. He placed it on the passenger seat. Then he walked back inside because the funeral director called him to sign one final document. The camera facing the parking lot captured the next 90 seconds. A woman approached the unlocked SUV. She opened the passenger door, picked up the leather bag, closed the door, walked calmly to another vehicle, drove away. No panic, no hesitation. As though she already knew exactly what she was taking. The image wasn't sharp enough to identify her face, but Ryan recognized the car immediately. That's Karen's. The investigator obtained a warrant for Karen Mitchell's phone records and employment history. The results answered almost every remaining question. Karen had never been employed by the hospice agency Dad believed she worked for. She had used forged credentials to present herself as an experienced private caregiver after responding to an online advertisement Ryan had posted when Dad first needed daily assistance. For over a year, she gradually became involved in Dad's finances, helping him organize paperwork and assist with online banking. Ryan had introduced her into the house. Karen had learned everything else herself. The missing transfers were traced to accounts she secretly controlled through shell companies. Ryan's admitted $80,000 in loans were real. Dad had authorized every one of them. The remaining money had been diverted by Karen over several months, while convincing Dad that banking errors or Ryan's financial problems explained the discrepancies. When Dad finally became suspicious, he changed attorneys, updated his estate plan, and began documenting everything. Karen realized time was running out. The so-called marriage certificate was fraudulent. The county clerk's seal had been copied from an unrelated filing. Eric Lawson, Dad's longtime mechanic, had never witnessed any wedding. Someone had stolen his identity. The wedding photograph had been digitally altered using older family pictures. The missing wedding ring explained why. Without Dad's real ring, the fake photograph looked incomplete. Karen had stolen it from the funeral home before anyone realized its importance. She also took Dad's phone because it contained the final text messages between them. Those messages were recovered from his cloud backup. One of the last read, "Karen, don't come back tomorrow. I've hired another attorney." Another followed 37 minutes later. "Bring my house key. We are finished." She never returned the key. The probate court rejected the fraudulent will before it was ever admitted. The certified copy held by Mr. Benson became the controlling estate plan. Ryan was never appointed executor. Neither was I. Dad's choice stood. A neutral administrator completed everything exactly as he intended. The house was sold. The investments were divided equally. Ryan's documented loans were deducted from his inheritance exactly as Dad instructed. Ryan signed every accounting without objection. "I owe it," he told me. "I'm done pretending I don't." Karen eventually faced multiple felony charges related to identity theft, forgery, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, and fraud. The criminal case took more than a year. Justice wasn't fast. It rarely is. Ryan sold his business and took a steady maintenance job with the local school district. Every month he mailed another payment toward the remaining balance he owed Dad's estate. He never missed one. About 18 months after everything ended, he asked if I'd meet him at the lake cabin. The place Dad had secretly bought back for both of us. The porch still creaked the way it had when we were kids. Ryan handed me an old tackle box. I found this behind the workbench. Inside was Dad's pocket knife, his favorite fishing lure, and a folded note neither of us had ever seen. It was only one sentence. "Don't let one person's lies become two brothers' inheritance." Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, Ryan looked out across the water. I kept thinking paying Dad back would erase what I did. It won't. I know. I also don't think you're the man you were 2 years ago. He nodded slowly. Neither do I. That was enough. Not forgiveness, not complete trust, just the beginning of something honest. Before I drove home, I carried Dad's old tackle box into the cabin and placed it on the same shelf where Grandpa used to keep it. For the first time since Dad died, the room felt peaceful instead of empty. I realized something then. The greatest inheritance my father left wasn't the house, the money, or even the cabin. It was the truth he refused to bury, even when it meant exposing the people he loved most. If this story stayed with you, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me whether you think Ryan deserved a second chance after everything that happened.